Hello, everybody. Welcome to Anime Sickos. It's the podcast for geniuses and the only podcast where we look at the four pillars of modern misery, anime, gaming, posting, and jobs. I am Tom, an anime sicko.
I'm Joe, an anime sicko.
We have two things I got to get out of the way. One's patrons, but I got to talk about this. The fucking audio drama I'm in, The Disappearances of Lydia Fontaine, I've talked about how that had a Kickstarter, and the Kickstarter is for the first season being produced. And I said that later I would read the official copy, and I intended to have someone on as a guest to promote that Kickstarter. What I did instead was neither of those things. However, the Kickstarter funded anyway, and two of the stretch goals even got hit. So we're going to make a 10-episode season where I play a guy, I play a white
How many
boy.
dollars? Say the numbers.
It was something like $19K. Like I don't know how they did it. It was not by my incredible promotion, but I'm blown away. I'm really excited for that. Keep your eyes out for that shit later when we produce it. I just wanted to get that. Congratulations to the Disappearances of Lydia Fontaine team for fucking smashing it and killing it and giving me a fun thing to do. I'm gonna call me that pro actor. Anyway. Second thing, that's all I wanted to say about that. Just wanted to give some props to that team. Is we got new patrons. People giving us money. There's nothing but money these days.
As someone who just got laid off, I now understand that human value is just money. If you're not getting it, you're lower than dirt. Worms would be correct to shit on you, et cetera, et cetera. This was all in the termination letter.
Yeah, which was in French, if I recall.
Yeah.
But like, it seems like these days people give money to me to make art. We got to thank some patrons. First of all, we got to thank Betsy Cardinal, or perhaps Cardinale, or Cardinale.
Thank you, Betsy. Please only hear the right one, and then thank you.
Yeah. I think Betsy is a returning patron. I recall having this exact problem once before. Thank you, Betsy. Delightful to have you giving us money. Next up, Alex Johnston. We love Alex Johnston.
Thank you, Alex.
Can't get enough of this guy. Actually, Alex Johnston is trash to me now because this next patron is much better. Because this next patron, their name sounds like a title you get from being like the best wizard. Thank you for giving us money, Rain Raven.
Ooh, that's fun. Yeah, that's Cauldron adjacent.
Yeah. Like if you got to dress in a goth outfit and you're like the best at water spells, you're the Rain Raven. I love that. I'm glad that the Rain Raven is our patron. Our last new patron of the of this episode. This is actually kind of an unusual one because you know, Joe, how we always make a joke that we have people on as guests and then we pay our guests because we have morals, and then guests
after they subscribe and we
get that money.
We add to the GDP. Yeah.
Yeah, except we got to pay taxes on that money when it comes back.
Since when?
At the beginning, the whole time. Anyway, that's been the cycle so far. And it's been very funny when we make jokes about it. But, you know, sometimes even the funniest joke can get played out. When you repeat it too many times, you need a twist. The twist is that this shit happened in reverse. Because our newest patron is AJ Ditty, who's here now. Hello, AJ.
I've been here the whole time. Hello.
You did the podcast equivalent of like, if you want a job, you know, just go in and shake someone's hand.
Bring your resume to the office.
I mean, basically, it's very fortunate because I was also recently let go from my job. I actually was responsible for writing termination letters, but I kept writing them in French. So,
fuck you.
And I just want to be very clear. I do not speak French. I just wrote "le fired" on every single piece of paper and hope that would get the point across.
That's like what happened when I hit translate this email.
You are how you say "le fired." Every time anything French comes up, I can't. Since that fucking sketches we did where Joe said "soccer blue." That's the only thing I can say. Like, soccer blue, we're electing the lead Nazis. AJ, thank you for being here and giving us money, but mostly being here. Who are you? If our listeners are like, who is AJ Ditty? Who is you then?
I am one of the three voices of the Worst of All Possible Worlds podcast. Which one of those voices? Who knows? I'm one of them. But I co-host that with my two buds, Josh and Brian, and I'm also a playwright. I'm an actor and video game enjoyer, I guess.
It sucks to say gamer, right? You just want to, I just enjoy them. I will never be the hideous gamer, though.
Yeah, no, there is sort of that stigma, especially because I really love the FromSoft games, and the discourse has started coming back about Elden Ring, and I'm just so tired. I just want to be able to play my game and not have people scream at it about, that it's too hard now, even though it's exactly the same as it's always been. Anyway, if you follow the scaling that the game provides you, it's as difficult as any other FromSoft game. And you have all these dudes being like, it's too hard because it went woke now. And I was like, they've always been woke. Bloodborne is about the power of women, and the terrors of the cosmos. It's like, come on, it's always been in there. I just read an article right before coming on. I came in too hot. I feel like I've come into your sacred space screaming.
No, we love
3
that.
seconds in.
We were actually Joe and I were just talking about Elden Ring because he's been unapologetic FromSoft decliner. I'll say I think that's the kindest way to do it.
And that's fair.
I have given them the college try, to be clear. It's not like I've been, I don't want to touch that. I played Bloodborne, and I beat Bloodborne. Bloodborne was one of my favorites because I liked how every weapon was two things. I loved the transforming shit. I thought that was slick.
Yeah.
I would like to see that return in a game I actually want to play.
But we were talking about maybe with your laid-off self playing some Elden Ring. There is some discourse around it. People say the Ring should be younger. I think the Ring is very Eld. I think the Ring it's very good that the Ring is this Elden. Personally, I see that as a problem.
There aren't many roles once the Ring hits a certain age. There aren't many roles that they can play. So it is nice to see a game that's centered entirely around an Elden Ring.
I mean, okay, let's.
This is the media literacy problem. I'm sorry, the not noticing that it's always been woke. Like, it's just no one can watch or read anything, which is fine. It's just like we have to be subjected to this forever. Starship Troopers not getting that is like a key example.
Oh yeah.
I don't want to have to hand it to them because, again, these are satanic people. We're talking about demons, folks. I don't want to hand it to them, but in their defense, or I should say, to further explicate the truth of the matter with the Elden Ring, is that everything about the story of these Dark Souls games, you only get that if a British YouTube man is telling you it. When I played Elden Ring the first time,
very soothing voice.
I was watching the British YouTube man. I was going to sleep with these incredible lore explanations, and when he said it, I was like, obviously this is the story. How could anyone miss it? And I'm replaying it to get a new character to the point where I can do the DLC. And my wife is like, "Oh, what was the story with these guys?" And I'm like, "What was the lore with these?" And I'm like, "How the fuck should I remember? I don't know." And not only how do I remember, there's no way to tell. I need a YouTube man to tell me. So Starship Troopers, the meaning is right in your face. In Elden Ring, it is, again, the meaning can only be gleaned if a British man says the most soothing things in the world to you.
Yeah, it doesn't help that every character in the game is named with a first name that begins with a G, an R, or an M because of George R.R. Martin.
That's so fucking good. I love that.
Yeah.
Just having the courage to be like, yeah, it's me.
Good luck. And everyone's two different people, sometimes simultaneously, sometimes over the course of 1,000 eons. It's a very confusing game, and I will say that having now played through all the DLC, the story doesn't get any clearer, and in fact just kind of gets, I don't know, more complicated for the sake of being complicated. I mean, you don't finish the DLC and are like, yeah, I figured it out. It's just ew.
I haven't gotten to the DLC yet. I just purchased it today because I feel like my guy is finally at a level where I can go into the big egg and do it. I'm just thinking about okay, so even before it came out, I'm like, the DLC has to be about Mikola, the one god we don't see, who is the beautiful, ageless twink boy who
Yes.
Moog wants to fuck and who lives in a big egg. And I'm just like, given all of these things I know about Mikola, I know that when I get more information, I'm going to be confusedder than ever.
Yes. Well, the thing you can also know going into it is that Mikola is also Saint Trina, who is the god of sleep. So I hope that's cleared things up.
Okay, that's fine. Oh, and wait, was Mikola one of the children of Marika that she had with herself?
Yes, I believe
Okay.
so. I believe it's Melania, Radon, and Mikola are all of the eight. What is it when it's created? It's not asexually, but it's asexual reproduction, I guess. But it is sexual reproduction because
It's
themselves.
It's not like a
masturbation,
starfish,
child.
right?
It's not like budding. It's not like a
Yeah.
budding thing.
Wait.
There was P and V at some point.
I thought
but
Radon was
P&V
Radagon
Samo.
and Renala's son.
Oh, maybe. Because there are two different branches of that. I know that Mikola and Radon are of the same parentage.
I can't imagine why a British guy was able to find a need to explain this shit.
Well, that's the thing about that channel that always boggles my mind. It's like, what happens when you run out of FromSoft games? And he just hasn't had to deal with that yet. Like, he's somehow able to stretch out his entire release calendar to just be around the games as they come out. I mean, it's astounding.
He had to have some lean times with Sekiro because that is sort of a game that actually tells the story like with words like that are on screen. And it's like, oh fuck, what do I do? Well, luckily I think there was still some stuff with the Way of Tomoe and shit like that.
Yeah, because they were going to do... I mean, it seemed like they were setting that up to do in DLC, and then the DLC release and was like, no, it's just a boss rush, and you can get, like, cool costumes for, Wolf.
That was so
Good
fucked.
luck.
Why is there not a Sekiro DLC? Are we just going to talk about Elden Ring and Sekiro and FromSoft games this whole time? 'Cause I'm fine with that.
I don't know. I feel bad. I don't want to subject Joe to that. I feel like we gotta talk about something.
I'll just think about Berserk. It's like basically the same. Like, so Berserk is Brain Guy,
Yeah.
He's one of the... I like him. I'll just think about Brain Guy.
Brain Guy is like Mikola.
Yeah, okay, so Brain Guy is also the coolest one for sure. Like, we don't see them hang out, but he's the alpha.
Have you seen this post going around? Someone who's like, I did this experiment because I felt like I was the only one putting together outings for my friend group where I didn't say anything to them for 30 days. And no one reached out to put together any interesting... no one reached out to hang out or go play a board game. I'm depressed. And it's like, no, look at the bright side. You're the leader. That's Brain Guy. Like, Brain Guy, if Brain Guy said, let's stop meeting up to do the eclipse, like, the eclipse
Wouldn't happen. Yeah, absolutely. He makes the group project get done.
Oh man, I think also that's a good sign to maybe get friends who actively want to hang out with you. I don't know.
That's a sad story because, like, it means this person does get to hang out. However, if they're not making the effort, it's not happening. Like, they're not worth it otherwise. Like, they're on the cusp.
I don't know.
You want friends who actively want to search out time with you. And I know everybody's busy, and especially since the pandemic, like nobody really wants to go outside or leave their apartments too much. And I do sympathize with that, but it can't all fall on you to organize everything. That's exhausting.
You hear that, Joe? You hear that?
No, I wasn't. How do I put this? I was politely listening, but but when you said "hear that," the part I had just listened to went away from my brain.
Okay, I'll continue doing all production tasks for the Anime Sickos podcast. Don't worry about it. It's fine. Doesn't weigh on me at all.
Oh my god.
Anyway,
welcome to the final episode of Anime Sickos.
No.
What have I done? What have I done?
No, this is old hat. If this was new, this has been the case forever.
yeah, we always knew. Actually, perfect segue, because I wanted to talk to you about this, and this is it. So I've often mentioned in the past that in my creative and artistic career, really everything I've ever done has been stuff that I produced. It has been extremely difficult for me to convince some other motherfucker to let me be part of their thing. Sure. So, like this fucking audio drama I'm being in, the disappearances of Lydia Fontaine is like one of the first. Like part of what's so like surreal to me about that is like you're like you cast me, like huh, are you sure? Like, are you sure I didn't cast me? Because that's generally what happens.
Oh, that's lovely.
Because of that, the idea of being a theater person is unthinkable to me. Because you really need, like, you can't just decide, like, I'm going to put on my own play without having a lot of the skills necessary to actually do that, which is far beyond the skills required to, say, put on a live show where everyone just fucking reads paper and, like, now here's Benamina, or put on a podcast where you just be like, hello, it's Sam Sickles, we're fucking talking. So,
like, you got to know carpenters.
Yeah, like, what's that like, man?
Well, I knew a carpenter once. I'm just going to hold on. I'm going to flip my chair around. And he had 12 really close friends. He really loved mounts. He really loved feet. And he combined those two things together with a nail and died for your sins, and his name was Jesus Christ.
Wow. That's incredible. We did a joke before you came on where we were like, we're talking about carpenters. And it's like, I love how Harrison Ford was a carpenter. And it was just, someone noticed, like, you're really handsome and everyone loves you because you give us weed. Want to be in our movie? And then Joe was like, you know who else was a carpenter everyone loved? And I'm like, Harrison Ford. He's like, yeah.
Yeah, he
Our Lord and Savior Harrison Ford.
Just saying the same person twice. Oh, wonderful.
Fantastic.
No, but okay, to the point.
Yes.
How do you get into that? Did you study acting? Did you be a theater guy? Wow.
I was a theater guy. I was a child actor.
Wow.
Whoa.
Well, I did one. Okay, so here's where things get weird, because I was a child actor in that I did one professional job and I was 17 years old. So nobody really had any idea what to do with me.
Doesn't count.
But it was the premiere of a new Aaron Sorkin play at the La Jolla Playhouse, so it was a big fucking deal. I got to meet Spielberg. He grabbed my hand and crushed it because he has an iron grip. I got to hang out with Aaron Sorkin, who at the time was very nice to me. I feel like now he would be a lot more cross with me because I am a leftist and not a liberal like I was when I was 17 years old. But it was sort of a really big deal, and it was sort of a validation of a thing that had been happening since I was a kid, because I've been acting like in like school productions since I was like 5 or 6 years old, and it was the thing that I actually really loved doing. And I would do in like youth theater circles that aren't like plays that you normally do. It's usually just musicals, which is unfortunate for me because, I could carry a tune. I'm not a Broadway singer. So I would always sort of get the character roles, which meant, I've been a 45-year-old man since I was 12 years old. And, Thénardier and Les Mis is sort of my shit. I would love to actually like do it in a not youth theater setting someday. But I got cast in that show at the La Jolla Playhouse, and it was sort of this validation of like, oh, this is the thing you could do as a career. And the director of that play wrote my recommendation to get me into the summer camp at NYU for their summer acting program. And I did that. I went to they have like, the thing about NYU as an acting school is that it's not just one curriculum, it's several different studios all at once. So I went to the Lee Strasberg Institute of Film and Television and Stage Acting, which is like the method, basically. I was a method actor when I was in high school. And through that program, I got into NYU, and I went to Strasberg again, despite it not really working for me. I left after 2 years because I was sick of watching other people cry, and I went to Playwrights Horizons Theater School, which is also part of NYU, and there I learned how to like hang lights and direct, and I got I'd always been like a playwright too. I wrote plays in high school, and I wrote one at Strasberg before I transferred, and so I got to write more there at Playwrights, and then I became this thing where at Strasberg they were like, you are not an actor, you are a playwright. And then when I went to Playwrights, they were like, you are not a playwright, you are an actor. And so I think that has sort of shaped my entire career because no one has any idea what the fuck to do with me.
Jesus Christ.
Yeah.
Okay. I wanted some clarification. So my knowledge of the method as a layperson, I have to imagine is not the full story, because my understanding of method actor is guy who pretends to be who's just pretending all the time,
like nonstop. This is the Simpsons episode. I mean, there's more to it than that, probably, right? Or maybe not. I don't know.
It is completely the opposite of that in every way. Every time you see that is might be their method, but it is not the method. The method is, and I want to stress here, I am not a method actor because I think it's all kind of, it just doesn't work for me. I'm really happy for the people that it does work for, but it's just I feel like I feel like all of our brains are too overstimulated in sort of the modern society to like actually utilize everything that the method acting is going for, because it was created in the 30s and 40s, where like in your entire lifetime you might see like 100,000 images, and nowadays you see like close to 3 million, 4 million in a lifetime. So I don't know if it like works necessarily as well these days, but basically you can do it right now. Are you both ready to be method actors? We can do this.
Let's do it.
It's the easiest thing in the world.
Okay, I'm getting my condos ready to email to all my emails. Email to all my friends.
I already did it. It was so easy. I just did it.
So and listeners, you can also do this. Imagine a lemon in your head. Try and picture all the little like crevices in there, the shape of it, the bright yellow color. I really want you to like take the lemon and rotate it in your mind.
Oh man, I'm rotating. Is this it? Like this rules? Has this been it the whole time?
This has been it the whole time. You take that, you rotate it, right? Now what I want you to do is, in your mind's eye, I want you to take a knife. I want you to take the knife, and I want you to cut into the lemon. And I want you to imagine, like, the spritz of the citrus coming out, the smell that hits your nostrils, even picture, like, the rind and stuff on the inside of the lemon. And my question is, did your mouth water?
No. I don't know. I'm not going to eat a raw lemon.
No. But like the idea of like the sour taste can elicit like saliva in your mouth, and the idea is that is imaginary stimuli resulting in physical results, and that is all the method is. So
it's just fucking pretending. That's why I thought acting was from the beginning.
Right. But they kind of disguise it under this like. It's not like you're imagining like a giant yellow dragon in your head and you're getting stuff from that. It is based on like lived past experiences, which is the difference between Strasberg and Adler styles of acting. And Adler is strictly imaginary. As long as you pretend that you are the person in the situation, you'll get all of the physical responses that you need in order to do the scene. And then Strasberg was like, no, what you need to do is actually draw from your own lived experience, and that will produce everything. So ignore basically everything that's in the play and just make it about you, which is why a lot of method actors, like the big ones of the 70s, like De Niro, Pacino, and all them, they basically took the role and then brought it closer to themselves, as opposed to like playing a more character-y kind of role.
So my question is, when you hear about like Daniel Day-Lewis was in character as Daniel Plainview the whole time, wow.
Yeah.
How does Daniel Plainview think the catering got there?
Yeah.
What does he think about the camera?
And that's the thing, is that, look, as long as what method you're doing is harmless to your castmates and doesn't, like, upset their process, do whatever you want. Like, truly. People who work with Daniel Day-Lewis are just like, yeah, it's not that he's, like, fully in character the whole time. It's that he's maintaining the voice because he has an Irish accent otherwise, and he loses it very quickly. So the only way that he can like maintain the character throughout the film is to like keep the mannerisms and the impressions, but he can still like text on his phone.
You know what this is?
And he does.
This is when you see someone jogging and they're at like a stoplight and they keep moving, before they cross. He's keeping it going.
Okay.
Yeah, he's just keeping the momentum going. People like Jared Leto, on the other hand, I can't say what should happen to them because it is actionable.
He's more pew-based, right?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah. He is just like, my character is an asshole, so I get carte blanche to be an asshole to everyone I meet. And it's just an excuse. Like, when people say it's like a method performance or whatever, it is mostly an excuse for white men to get away with shit. There's an old, I don't know if it's a tweet or like just an old maxim that made the rounds, but it's just like you never see anyone going full method for a Nancy Meyers movie.
Yeah.
Right. Even though the acting that they're doing is almost like exactly the same, it's just not called that because it's not the particular kind of Joker performance is the best way to describe it now. Is like,
I mean,
extremely violent.
I just think that these guys need to start rotating lemons in their heads. I think that would really chill them out. I was having a great time when I was rotating that lemon.
Yeah. Now imagine being graded for that, and that's what going to acting school is like. They will grade you on the quality of lemon you are rotating in your head.
It's so fucked up they can see it. How?
Somehow.
That was my next question. Because, so my brother has often said this, which, as someone who took a couple of journalism classes for a minor, I can tell right away what a ridiculous thing to say. But he's just like, what do they even teach in journalism school? Just write down what they said. What do you got to learn?
That's sort of the problem, I think.
But sort of like in acting school, like, and this is just my ignorance. Like, what do they even teach you?
Sure.
Make when you say these words, make it be good. Like, make it sound like you're pretending really good.
Yeah. I mean, I could go into extreme detail about this if you'd like me to. I can talk about acting school, the curriculum. We did Tai Chi. Was a big part of it to focus our bodies.
That's how you learn powers, dude.
Yeah. So I do that. That makes a huge difference. All movement. It's all movement based. It's all it's puts the focus on movement. Yes.
We did this exercise that was just the tree stance, I think, and we had to hold that for 45 minutes without moving. And that was like the final of the class. If you practice every week, you'd be able to do it. And you can do that in like 3 or 4 months. You can train your body to do that. So we did that to sort of focus our bodies. We took movement classes. We took dance classes. We did jazz and tap. I was very bad at jazz. I was a little better at tap, but I'm just not really a dancer. My brain isn't sort of hardwired for that. We did singing classes. We did voice and speech classes, which taught us, how to project, how to have do different accent work and that sort of thing. Accents were more year 2. And then we had acting classes where we would just bring in scenes and we would basically be told at Strasberg by our teachers to activate the most traumatic thing that's happened in our life.
Oh, fun. Can't
in
wait.
order to get ourselves to cry. And then we would be, if you cried, you were given an A.
This is not unlike our criticism with a lot of like storytelling events that we've been to, which is just the point is to tell the saddest, most mind dramatic experience. And to be clear, like that is an experience that you're communicating and all that stuff. However, it's the move. Like it's always the move.
Yeah, because especially when we were coming up, the big thing was like the moth and these like competitions. And and to say nothing against the people who told the stories of deep and shocking trauma, they did tell them very well. But someone telling an equally well told story about like how they did about some other shit that was not as shocking will never win. And it just felt like, well, as someone who hasn't had any of this shit happen to me, like what again, like I can't break into the scene. I need to start my own show where it's like, you don't need to have been like suffer
or just have a lot of trauma
happen.
happen to you. Like, have you considered just like getting more trauma?
I mean, that was literally my next thing. I was like, obviously everybody deals with stuff, but like you could get to that class and just not have like a story. Like someone in your class is gonna say some shit that happened to them that's gonna make you feel like nothing has ever happened to you ever. Like it's just like the level of it is heavy. And I don't know. Does that mean you have to dig deeper and find more pain?
I would just like to argue that perhaps doing this with 18 and 19-year-old kids, perhaps they haven't worked through a lot of that stuff and should do it with a professional and not someone who, played the old guy in Big Daddy. Perhaps. Perhaps.
In the context of creative writing classes, I've heard the same thing as a complaint, which is like a lot of these students want to write about high school. It's like, well, they're fucking 18. Like, that's literally what happened to them. Like, that's like the most... I understand not wanting it, but you can't be like surprised that they're doing it.
Yeah. Well, no, and the thing is, too, that, like, there's an old maxim sort of in theater, too, where there aren't a lot of good plays about teenagers. and that is like the demographic that does the most plays, right? It's high school. Like every high school in the country has at least two. Oh, not anymore. I mean, most of those programs have been cut to shit. But like, you know, the most theater that's done in the country is high school theater. And there just aren't plays that, you know, people can relate to. It's like, you know, either you are playing the young ingenue, or you're like me and have been a 45-year-old man since you were 12, and you're playing all the old men and dads, or perhaps local pervert. You know, then there's that is a trope in a lot of like 30s and 40s plays. It's just like, oh, what a lovely family, and oh, here's the local pervert, and it's just like, I'm in your bushes, you know, and that's that you get typecast at a certain point. But yeah, no, so we need actually these 18, 19-year-olds to be writing plays about teenagers, because it's something that like once you hit a certain age, you kind of forget about, or it's instantly dated. So we need that deluge, but it is highly discouraged because, you know, creative writing teachers, I'd imagine, don't want to constantly read plays about teenagers. Yeah. But it's just like, you chose this life, and once you are working with teens.
You're taking their money, yeah. Like you're the business model here is 18-year-olds, please write your feelings. It's gonna happen.
I mean, and as a writer, once you get to that level where you're like, I can make something like good that's like, and I know it's good. I do have the chops. I've worked on them. The idea of writing something about high school is like, well, that's no. That's like, so I'm past that.
I wrote about that and it was all terrible.
Yeah,
so why
exactly.
would I go back?
I fucking wrote short stories in college about people in college, and man, they blew big ass. Never deleted that shit. They gone. You can't read them. Apropos of nothing, but when you said there's an old maxim in theater, I thought like, oh, it's the magazine with Jessica Alba. Everyone's jacking it to it. It's a rite of passage.
It's very dusty.
No, that's
I got that image and I was like, fuck, I'm gonna like go insane if I don't get this out.
I mean, we had some weird traditions in my high school theater. Like we had a chain, like a little necklace chain that we would pass on from like the senior who had it would then pass it on to like the next sophomore who was like the heir apparent to like the drama community. There was a whole ceremony that was read. Like they had a paper and there was a whole ritual that happened around it. Like it was freaking nuts. I mean, we were in Catholic school, so you know, it was a lot of people being like, we love rituals and also bureaucracy.
Yep.
So it, you know, we fell into that trap. But yeah, it's a weird little niche to fall into.
That brings up a question I have, which is, what do you do when like there's clearly someone who's like, oh, they're the best at this, and like everyone else feels like we're just kind of doing this for fun, and then there's this guy who's the best at this. Like what? I have to imagine it's not an uncommon phenomena in high school acting communities. And like,
oh sure. I mean, the thing was, that was me in high school. I was the guy who was good at the thing. And there were so many other people in my program who are also really, really great at the thing. But the problem is that certain teachers will reward certain kinds of being good at things, right?
Like crying.
Like crying, for example. And so much of your self-worth, at least at that age, is dictated by adults, right? And you never think about, like, what does it mean if the adult in charge of this might be bad at their job, or might be cruel to their students, you know? Like, you just internalize it, and it's like, and make it all your fault. Because there were people in my program who my teacher would actively say were bad, and they weren't bad. They were so good at so many other things. It was just they weren't good at the specific skills that this teacher thought were worthwhile.
Yeah. That sucks. That's very the doctor was wrong coded. I'll move fast.
Wait, like Doctor Who? Like
no. It's this stupid. I told this stupid joke and I've become obsessed with it, which is the old joke about like a man was killed and the son needs surgery, but the doctor says I can't operate on this person. He's my son. How is this possible? The doctor was wrong. Yeah, he's just not his son.
He's an idiot.
He's just wrong.
He's just stupid. Yeah.
The doctor was wrong. Okay, so something you said before that really hit me and made me feel excited was when you were talking about all the fucking different disciplines you're being taught in addition to acting. And I feel like this is something, you know, people make fun of theater people, and I'm sorry to say it, justifiably. But one thing that theater people have that is like very legit is they have above a lot of other creative types of people is that sort of multidisciplinary like skill, like legit demonstrable skill that like you have to be able to like sing. You can't fucking fake singing and dancing. You have to do it right. You can tell when someone's not dancing good. You can hear when the note's wrong.
Yeah.
And like that is, I would give up. Personally, I would give up if that had to do all that.
And many do. Most of my college class don't act anymore. It is an incredibly grueling profession, particularly because the American theater, as we know it, since the pandemic, it was already kind of going in a landslide. Like Hamilton was the thing that sort of boosted it up to like being profitable again. Mm-hmm. But then after that, there needed to be like another big mega hit, and just one wasn't coming by the time the pandemic hit. And then the pandemic hit, and theater was pretty much obliterated. In New York, like especially at like the entry level, unless you were like in the bigger houses in the city, like you really struggled through that. And it's still hitting theater companies like there's this thing called Space at Writer Farm, which is just a place where like 12 playwrights all go for a week and live in a house upstate and just write plays and read them out to each other. And that went under because like the cost of doing it was too much. But again, it's like, and that's like one of the cheapest things in the world. So like the drawbridge really has sort of gone up, and a lot of people saw that drawbridge going up and were like, you know what? This makes me feel bad. All that my teachers made me like remember like close family members dying in front of me. Perhaps this isn't like a sustainable career. And they went off and they did other things and found other things that made them happy. I'm just the idiot who is not good at anything else. So I had to stick with it and, have some success. But, I've never been on Broadway, mostly because I'm not a singer or dancer. And, that sort of checks you out of a lot of opportunities to work on Broadway. But I've been off Broadway, and that was really fun, and that was a very successful time. But it doesn't sustain you forever because you have to go and find something else to do.
Shit, I always hope that when we have someone from a different artistic discipline on the show, that they're like, it's actually been great. Things have been getting better, more opportunities than ever. It hasn't happened yet. Isn't that odd?
Is that odd?
What are the odds that every single artistic discipline is in decline? Why would that happen?
I don't know. There can't be a systemic reason for this. It must clearly be that we just don't want to work anymore.
People lack gumption, and that's the issue.
I hate working.
Yes! Bring back gumption.
Gumption. I'm not so much on gumption. Moxie. Could we do Moxie?
Oh,
Moxie's good.
Moxie's good.
Have you ever had Moxie?
The drink?
The drink?
No.
It's god awful. Don't ever drink it. It tastes like if Coca-Cola were a mistake.
Well, I hear you, but also as a Chicagoan, I sort of have a kinship for a disgusting local drink that we make outsiders drink as a joke. When Josh was here, we made him drink a shot of Malort, Chicago's most foul poison.
Malort.
It sucks. Like we turned it into like a culture thing, but it shouldn't be because the drink just sucks. For a time, it was only made here and sold here. Now it is only sold here but made in Florida, which is funny.
It is very funny because it's like,
was there a decline in quality? Like, did the taste change at all?
It was never good. To me, it tastes like nails. Like it coats your mouth with a metallic feeling. It burns certainly, but booze in general does. But the thing that with Malort, it's just like I've never experienced it elsewhere. It's like this coating experience. It's like the inside of your mouth is now made of aluminum.
It's a very tussin-coated experience. This was 100% prank-based drink. Like, this exists. The only situation that Malort is appropriate for is Josh was there, and he goes, no, I don't want to drink it. It tastes bad. And we go, no, it's funny to drink it. And he goes, okay. And he's like, that was funny.
While dying on the floor.
Yeah.
Spitting out nails.
It tastes like My when I first had it, my description, because that's also half the fun, is when you taste it, you have to have your description of Malort. And part of, how you judge people, in acting class is whether or not you can cry. Therefore, having your father shot in the face in front of you when you were 5 is the most valuable thing that can happen to you.
Yes.
In Chicago, the way you judge people is if their fucking description of Malort is like bacon epic or not. Because it's so easy to make it bacon epic, and if you do, it's just like, this is not a worthwhile person. So my description was always, it tastes like the basement. It doesn't taste like you're eating the basement. It just tastes like the basement.
Oh, hell yeah. I'm honestly a little disappointed. I've been to Chicago 3 times, and never once has anyone offered me Malort. I feel perhaps like I've missed something. I've
Fourth
missed out
time's
on
the charm,
rite of
motherfucker.
passage. There you go. I mean, next time I'm there, I'm 100% having it. I can't have it alone. I feel like drinking Malort alone would be like, that would be my basement.
No,
yeah, it's like a stunt food anyway. It's like the same way you wouldn't do, you have to eat 10 hamburger challenges at home.
yes.
It's a social
For
event.
no one.
I mean, you know what it's
Does
like?
it make a sound?
It would be like doing a stand-up set at home to yourself. Well,
Hey,
that's not exactly true because you could
way
be
ahead of you.
practicing. It's like doing a stand-up set for yourself at home and then not ever using that material again, or doing the ice bucket challenge and not filming it. It's no. It's a prank-based food. You need to have the pranksters around with you, going, "Oh, he's drinking it. I can't believe." And then also,
The
actually,
bomb, yeah.
as at the other angle is, once you've had that happen to you, the experience of being like the Malort knower, it's basic, but it's so satisfying to be like, I can drink this and I don't react at all. I guess I'm just built different. Chicago, baby. Fuck a bodega. We go to Target. They say, in bodegas you can get sandwiches. They got Starbucks in the Targets now. I don't see what the problem is.
What is a chopped cheese? I saw a video of, I think it was Eric Adams saying weird shit, but I think he kept referring to a chopped cheese. Is that a thing?
Yeah.
Okay.
You put those on crackers, Joe. You cut the cheese into slices.
I mean, it's basically a Philly cheesesteak, but it's like outside of Philly. They're like just chopped cheeses. At least every one that I've had is like a Philly cheesesteak, so maybe I've been hoodwinked, but it was, that's my understanding of it.
Wow.
You can get those at any bodega you want. We actually have a bodega down the street that does like tacos and burritos and shit.
Yeah.
And that is, it's the best.
Yeah, they got tacos at my grocery store.
Are they like ready to go in a warmer? Are they like made to order? Like the bodega?
No, they're made to order.
Okay.
Yeah, they got a little grill back there.
We got that, Joe. We got that shit. Maybe not in fucking Little Shittily where you're at, but like I can go to Rico Fresh around the corner and get tacos and tamales from the counter. It's right on the side, and it's not a bodega because it's a grocery store. It's big.
There you go. There you go. You got the Omega Bodega.
AJ, I gotta ask you. It's been 38 minutes since we've started this hilarious experience. I gotta ask you.
Yeah.
Are you, AJ Ditty, an anime sicko?
I want to preface this with, I don't think so, but unless we count visual novels as anime, which I do because I think visual novels are just anime but slower.
Yeah.
So
are you? I've never heard a more absurd question than, do we count visual novels as anime? It's like,
I don't know. Some people don't. They need more motion.
This is absurd.
I feel like if you are saying and understand the phrase visual novel, you are in the orbit of anime no matter what.
Yes. Like, you are already not a normal guy. If visual novel is like, aren't all novels visual to read the words? Don't you need to look at the page?
My favorite visual novel is Ulysses.
Yeah. Try reading that with your eyes closed. Audiobooks in Braille. Well, without those two.
That's right. Okay. It's hard to read with your eyes open, is what I'll say.
Okay, visual novels. What's your poison? What do you like?
I'm a huge Danganronpa fan. I am a defender of that game, despite all of its faults. I think it is such an extraordinary commentary on collectivism. I think, and it is such a. it's a testament to the power of hope, but it's not about like, oh, we just need to hope and then we'll be okay. It's like, but what if hoping too much is also really fucking bad? And I feel like so much like of anime stuff doesn't really like interrogate that necessarily, or at least not a lot of the stuff that I've come across. It's a lot of just like hope will save the day, and then hope does save the day. It's like, what if hoping too much is actually what leads to like horrific bodily murders? And then the third one is, I think, the greatest treatise against sequels that I've ever seen in my life, in the way that like Dark Souls 3 is also a game about the futility of trying to make a sequel to something.
It's purposefully about the futility of sequel. Okay, this is very interesting, and I'm going to have to force you to expand on this because I don't know nothing about Danganronpa other than that shit.
Dang that Rampa.
Other than that shit seems real intimidating, and I don't want to have to learn about what that bear do.
Can I take a stay? I'm kind of familiar. Let me know if I'm on track here. It's
Please.
It's a survival sort of thing, right? It's like a classroom where people have to do challenges, and then someone gets voted out and is killed. Is that correct? Like, obviously, I'm really oversimplifying it, but
No, it's halfway there. It is halfway there. So it's not that they have to do challenges. It's just that if they are able to kill another one of their classmates and get away with it, they will survive, and everyone else will be killed. So
that's the challenge. Okay.
Yeah. So it's battle royale basically, but it's like it's more of like an Agatha Christie battle royale.
But there's like voting at the end, right? There's voting. Okay, cool.
Yes, they have trials. They have like actual class trials where you have to prove people's guilt or innocence.
Motherfucker, is this just goth Ace Attorney?
Yeah, pretty much.
Okay,
yeah.
I'm on board. Tell me more.
Yeah, there's some. I'm just gonna put it out there. There's some really weird fucking shit in that game that I cannot defend. If you max out a social link with your classmates, you will get their underwear, and that's just not. It's just something I cannot defend. But the actual like, because you'll play the first game and be like, that was a pretty good visual novel about how to survive a horrible situation. Great. The sequel then is basically an interrogation of the first one. It's just like everything you thought you knew about the first one might have been actually really fucked up, and you should probably examine that. Yeah. And then the third one is like, this whole thing is a charade. We should have never done this from the word go, and it's only brought pain and misery, and it's so weird that you actually get a kick out of seeing teenagers die. What is happening with this? Like, why are any of us here? And it's so fascinating and so cool, and very socialist is what I will say. And maybe that's been colored because I've been listening to there's a whole subsection of the No Cartridge podcast that just goes over like Danganronpa so far, and they make really great arguments as to why it is a very leftist video game that have just probably buried themselves into my head.
Give me an example.
It's about the collective overcoming like the societal end of the world, basically, and how the only way that we can survive is through each other and not through the rugged individualism that built the world that was then destroyed.
Which record scratch? AJ's doorbell rang. We're back. Seamless. AJ, since we're talking about visual novels, we mentioned this briefly that Danganronpa is just goth Ace Attorney, but let's talk about normal Ace Attorney. Isn't that shit
OG
good?
Ace Attorney.
There's so many. There's so many.
Yeah. Are we talking about the original trilogy? Do you want to talk about the one where you do adventures alongside Herlock Sholmes?
No, I love the
great
originals,
Ace Attorney.
But let's talk about Herlock Sholmes.
Yes.
And what a character. I love
our greatest little himbo. Oh boy. What a great idea. Joe, are you familiar with Herlock Sholmes?
No, the Ace Attorney story-wise, I'm not familiar with like the original, and that you have an employee who dies and she has huge boobs and she manifests in other people. Did that happen?
She's your boss. You're her employee.
Oh,
you're her employee.
That was sexist of me. I'm sorry. So. I apologize.
The doctor was wrong.
We're talking about the Great Ace Attorney Chronicles, which is a prequel where you are in Victorian England solving like fucking. I was gonna say Sherlock Holmes murders, but not quite.
No, it's a little bit of a twist on it too, because I have 2 more before I finish the first game, but
Oh,
I just
shit.
did sort of the
You got
pivotal
so much to come.
I know, I'm so excited. But there's this pivotal turn where because you are playing as a Japanese exchange student, I want to say, or like a lawyer basically.
Yeah.
He like sort of bumbles his way into becoming a lawyer by watching his best friend die in front of him.
This is Jack the Ripper times.
This is
Okay.
It's like like Sherlock Holmesy kind of like, so they do things like the Hounds of the Baskerville, I know is the name of one of the adventures. I think it's the last one in that first game. But you play as Ryunosuke Naruhodo, who is basically fills the Phoenix Wright role of being like the bumbling, I've been over my head kind of thing.
Yeah.
And then he uses the power of deduction to, like, save the day or whatever. But when you arrive in London, the first case that you do, you're representing this little Irish pervert who turns out is just basically Moriarty.
Yep.
And it's so cool that the game has like really thought through this like take on the Sherlock Holmes stories and then made them into this entirely new separate thing.
And we gotta talk about beating around the bush. Sherlock Holmes, because
yes,
Sherlock Holmes is not public domain fully, so they just call him Sherlock Holmes. I think it's like some of the stories are, and the Doyle estate is very litigious. So if you have Sherlock Holmes display any traits that he develops in the stories that are not public domain, they will.
He
sue
can't
him. So,
jack off. He will.
He learns about jacking off in like one of the final stories that isn't public domain yet. Anyway,
Sherlock Holmes in the Goon Cave. Yes,
yes. So you encounter a steampunk twink, who just invites you to live in his loft, named Sherlock Holmes, who is the best character in the game.
Yes, because he's dumb. Like he's observant, but like all like the conclusions he comes to are completely wrong. And it's so cool to think about. Like, imagine if like all the Sherlock Holmes stories that we see from the perspective of Dr. Watson, what if those were just glam up jobs and he just like miraculously failed upward?
Yes.
And it's such a cool take. It is such a cool take on the character that I have never seen before.
Because it's not like he's an idiot. That's the key thing. He's not like a complete buffoon. He does invent steampunk shit that does work. Often he will have like plans for an investigation or some other thing he's doing that like work, and like it's like, oh, this makes a lot of sense. And it's like sometimes what his bumbling is revealed to have been part of the plan, and you're like, Sherlock Holmes, you're so smart. But also, there's the deduction mini game where when he does a classic Sherlock Holmes thing, it's like, by the hem of your by the hem of your pants, I can tell that you are an Irish pervert, and the wear on your fly tells me that you've been masturbating to the old Maxim in the theater. But like when
last person to come on that Maxim has to eat it.
Oh, fun. When he points out something and then says the piece of information he extrapolates from it, you have to be like, actually, Sherlock Holmes, that you pointed at the right thing, but you extrapolated the wrong information. And like all Ace Attorney puzzles, it's for babies. You can't possibly get it wrong, but it feels good to get it right.
There are certain Ace Attorney puzzles that I do feel are, like, if you are not on the same logical wavelength as the creators, it can't. There are like leaps that you have to do. Like, you can figure out the answer, but the way to get there is just like the one very specific way that they told you to. Yeah. So there are times where I was a couple steps ahead of what was happening, but you had to prove step by step how to get there, and that's what I always kind of find frustrating about the games a little bit, is that you have to follow their logic and there's no other way to get there. But I mean, it's such a good payoff. I mean, by the end of the episode, who cares?
Man, I'm so excited for you to get to the later cases, and especially game 2. Talk about a sequel that calls into question everything you thought you knew about game 1.
I can't wait. It's one of the. It's one of those things too that they don't shy away from like the racism of it either, because like you are a Japanese exchange student in London in the 19th century, and people do treat you differently, and it is they don't shy away from it. They lean into it entirely, and it's so cool to see like even the most well-meaning characters like do like passive aggressive just like comments at you, and you're like, oh shit,
Yeah.
they're doing a racism.
Yep.
It's really cool. Like, it's such a smart game. As you said, sometimes I always go into these being like, well, this is, logic puzzle for babies, so the story should follow suit. And it always surprises me every single time. It's always so much smarter than I think it is.
I mean, talk about always surprising me when it shouldn't, especially after having played the original trilogy. When you hit the final case, it should never surprise you that all of those little side characters you've been meeting throughout in the prior cases, who sort of like do a little narrative task and then they're like, all right, bye-bye, I've done it. I've done my narrative task. I'll see you later. When they all come back and play a key role in the last case, it should never surprise me. But every time I'm like, and who was it that was in that locked room? It was this guy with a pun for a name from case 2. I'm just like, no.
He's probably gay, and you probably want to have sex with him. That is that is my experience with a lot of Ace Attorney protagonists. But and because the characters are so well drawn, like you're always happy to see them again. Well, there are a couple in Apollo Justice that I hope to never see again. But for the most part, like the character designs are so distinct. It's like y'all were talking about with your Toriyama episode. It's just like you always want to like. These are characters that you just want to see all the time. Even
I want
if
to
they
see my
might
dudes.
sometimes. Yeah, you want to see your guys, and even if sometimes they have the exact same face, it's a good face.
Yeah, like it's a solved problem. Like he drew Gohan and was like, well, that's going to be about a third of him because it's so good, and he was right to do it.
Yeah. Like, what makes Chrono Trigger so good? A lot of things, but a main one is that you're looking at Gohan 100% of the time.
Yep. And hey, if you want more thoughts on Chrono Trigger, I don't know, stay tuned to Podcast Land. Because we got some stuff cooking.
I don't want to give too much away, but Tom and I are excited for what is perhaps our best suited to our strengths away game of all time.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Sometimes you guest on a podcast and you're just like, I don't know if I'm going to be able to do it. It might be too far from my skill set. No, this is pure dingers. This is like T-ball for us.
Yeah, I feel that way every time I talk about musicals, and that's my curse. That is my burden. But yeah, no, that's gonna be a heck of a lot of fun. And yeah, I'm gonna get back to Ace Attorney as soon as I complete Chrono Trigger.
Hell yeah, it's so good. Joe has this thing where, like, if I, like, ask him, like, do you think you can record this week, he'll, like, forget I ever said it. But if I'm just like, what is the 58th line of dialogue in Chrono Trigger, he'll just have it.
Yeah, like, how does Water 2 have its damage calculated? Well, I got that number for you. I got the equation.
Wait, do you really?
Not, like, literally, but it is upsetting the things I retain and eject useful information. But yeah,
don't you have like Gato the robot's like little song that he sings at the Guardia Millennial Fair about silver points?
My name is Gato. Basically, he's so cool. You know why he's so cool? Because he's us. He's us, Tom. He's like, hey, come out here, kick our ass, earn some points. It sucks. See you later.
Yeah. That's our vibe, I think.
Everything I know about the law is from the trial Chrono goes on, where you can get sentenced to worse jail because you eat someone's lunch.
Mm-hmm. Okay. This is not a spoiler because this happens immediately in Chrono Trigger. But the first time I played it, which was even I played this like in college, so I played a lot of video games. A lot of video games long past the release of Chrono Trigger, and yet it still felt like this was like a game from the fucking future to think of this shit. Which is like, go have fun at the Millennial Fair, and part of you're playing a video game, so you go up to everything and press A. and then you get put on trial for being a public menace, and they like list the things you did, and it's like, I did go up to that guy and press A. Fuck. Oh,
Yeah,
God.
he shows up to testify.
He's like, that motherfucker came up to me, pressed A.
It's a little bit like the Ace Attorney thing where it's like there's these side characters and it's like, here they are again. It's like, that wasn't just an NPC, dude. That's the guy that's going to give evidence that's going to send you to super jail.
Yeah. It's
Yeah.
so fucking good.
I think I do think it's so weird that you can't talk to the little girl before you lead the cat to her, or that's bad. And I don't 100% understand why that's bad and why you get thrown in a more super jail for finding out what the problem is before solving it. The fact that you just have to solve it intrinsically does feel a little strange, but it is so funny that like my favorite part is that there's what are there like 7-8 jurors, and all of them come out one by one and say not guilty, and it takes so long, but it's so funny because by the sixth one you're like, surely there can't be more, and then another fucking guy comes and you're like, you're hooting, you're hollering. God, it's so good.
The presentation on that scene is insane because it's just like all they do is put sprites up close to give the illusion that you're like looking from the second floor at this court session, but it looks like super slick.
Dude, like that, the Chrono Trigger graphics, Final Fantasy VI graphics, like the opera, like I really don't think that 3D will ever fucking match that. And I mean, even like the pre-rendered backgrounds on like Final Fantasy 7, 8, 9, like, come on, man, that's beautiful. What are we doing with this bullshit fucking realistic 3D AAA graphics, killing everybody, doing crunch, taking 20 years for a game to come out? Boo, go back to sprites.
Yeah, I mean, it's just it lets you fill in the blanks more, right? There's like these hints of like this greater, wider world that you are just a speck in, as opposed to like being able to explore every single facet of the world. Kind of feels, it makes it feel smaller somehow.
This is the lore sucks thing, which we're a big fan of, which is if there's too much information given to you, that's actually like lame. Like it's fine to just not tell you everything and push you forward a little bit. Like that's fun. Yeah. It's an exciting and a good choice.
If you want to know more, you can watch a video by a British man where he tells you more.
Yeah, and also the video by the British man is an interpretation, but it's not like the definitive interpretation. Yeah. You can have your own, especially stuff like the original Dark Souls, which is, I think that a lot of people want to nail that thing down, but it is so vague that you can actually have a little bit more room to like interpret stuff. Whereas I feel like Elden Ring, its big problem is that it has all the lore written down and it really wants you to know the lore. And it kind of feels like taking AP US, or I'm sorry, AP Euro, right? Where it's just like, here are the names of all these kings that you've never met, and they all married each other, and they had kids, and you're just like, you lost me at like the third king you've named in the last 10 minutes.
They all have the same name. It's like, no, actually, the second syllable is different. No, I like the Elden Ring lore. It's fun. Whatever. Just get off the topic, which was...
Sure.
Here's what I think it is. And I said this before, and I'm going to say it again, because sometimes people don't remember the shit I said. Most notably, me. When you got, like, AAA graphics that are meant to be super photorealistic, obviously that is the result of millions of hours of artists working at the highest level possible. I will not deny that. However, because it is like we are slaves to the it must be realistic, that's what makes good graphics and that's what makes it cutting edge. As it gets so real, it stops being impressive because it's like, well, obviously it's going to look like this because that's how it looks. You know, like it's not impressive. Right. I'm not looking at this and saying, wow, so much human creativity went into this. I'm thinking, well, yeah, okay, that's like the standard. That's obviously how it's going to look. Whereas when you got Chrono Trigger sprites and you're in the fucking courthouse, you're like, someone made some wild choices to make the courthouse look like this. I feel like I'm in another world where I'm in court.
My favorite place to be, in another world, court.
also a little bit of I'm reminded of like painting, and it's like the hyper realistic, very technically skilled painting. Obviously, kind of got shooken up by the invention of the photograph, so you started seeing more expression, more like I don't know, just less
art.
literal stuff, right?
Yeah.
And the thing is, the AAA games feel more and more like the literal stuff. They are the beautifully drawn still life orange bowl.
Yeah.
You know, there just isn't technically impressive. Obviously, requires a bunch of labor and skill. I don't care though.
Yeah, I think what I was saying, a better way to say what I was saying before is that like these good graphics are photorealistic paintings done by a master of realistic painting. But because they look so much like photos, I can't help, my dumb brain can't help but assume that's just a photo and it took the amount of effort a photo takes. You know, like, and I hate that. I don't like when I make that assumption because I know it's wrong and I know it's discounting the work of a lot of really talented people, but just like I will always like the quirky thing that took less crunch because it just looks more like, oh, like I can tell that this was a piece of art made with choices and intent other than just like we have to make it look real because that's how it is.
Yeah. It also ages better, right?
Yes.
You look at stuff. You look at Wind Waker on the GameCube, and it still looks as beautiful as it did back then, even without the HD remaster. Like it still looks gorgeous. Same
Dark Cloud 2 as well. Just like anything that had like a cell shaded look or anything that was a little what's the word I'm looking for? Had a little extra style. It just holds up very well.
I mean, Beautiful Joe and like Okami, like all these games are just like, you know, you can play them now and they're still as breathtaking as they were.
Segue, record scratch, segue. AJ, you wrote down in your document fucking the game Hi-Fi Rush, which is fits what we're talking about to a T. Look at the dang cartoon in this game. It's beautiful when it does the cutscenes. The camera moves here and there. What do you say about Hi-Fi Rush?
Yeah. It is a miracle of a game, and I can't tell you how devastated I am that company, that studio was completely put out of, commission.
That was a truly hilarious capitalism in action moments. Like, we love Tango Gameworks. We're more happy than we could possibly imagine with the unthinkable success of Hi-Fi Rush. Anyway, fuck you.
Yeah, and that but I mean, again, it's one of those things that when you look at it, it's just like, I have no idea how they made this thing, because everything is kept to the beat. Everything in the game matches the soundtrack. And as somebody who can keep a beat for about, 8 bars before completely derailing, it is also a very difficult game for me because my rhythm is just not what it used to be. And I found such joy in rediscovering that part and actually getting better at rhythm as I played the game. It's something that can actually help you internalize it if it's something that you can struggle with because, like me, you're white. And inherently a bad dancer.
No, I feel you. No, I am too.
I mostly flail. I think my appeal is that I'm a big flailer. But it's such a cool story too. I don't know. It's like I wasn't expecting it to like. I just expected like an action game, and then they actually had something very cool to say about like corporate overreach, and then they were destroyed by corporate overreach.
They were right. They were punished for it. In my head, I was combining Gravity Rush and
Hi-Fi Rush.
Yeah, which is not correct. This one, as you said, it's a rhythm game, right? Like it's
like a beat 'em up type, like Bayonetta, Devil May Cry game where you have combos and you want to have the combo never break, but also like the way that the combos work is they only really pop off if you press the button 1, 2, 3, 4 on the beat of the game's soundtrack.
And all the enemies attack you also on the beat.
So you have to dodge on the beat too.
You have to also dodge on the beat. It's wonderful. And you'd think a game like that would get repetitive at a certain point, but they just keep introducing like new songs, and it's a beautiful formula because you'll just always get more and more songs.
Okay. interesting you say that, because if I had some criticisms of the game, which I did, I mean, obviously it's great, and especially for the price. You gotta play it, folks.
Yeah.
Two big criticisms is so much fucking jumping between the fights. You were like,
Yeah.
It's nothing new that like these games, like you have a combat encounter and then you have some platforming and then you have a combat encounter. It feels to me like the ratio is so fucked because the jumping one sucks. It's not fun.
It's difficult. You don't get as high up as you would anticipate when you hit the button, so you can mostly just plummet.
And there's just too much of it. And also, like, my feeling was like there's a lot of songs, but they all have the same beat. It never changes. I mean, and I see why they would do this. Like, if I was in the design team, I would do that too, because if you are like changing up the tempo and the time signatures on people, they will say game impossible, game too hard, fuck this game. It's the same thing about the Zelda Crypt of the Necrodancer. I don't know if the original did this because I never played it, but the Zelda Crypt of the Necrodancer, as soon as I figured out that it's always 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, and it never changes, the rhythm part went out the door. It was just a Zelda at that point.
I wonder. I haven't tried it on any other difficulties, but I wonder if the tempo does change based on if you're playing it on hard or not. I haven't gone back and done that.
Here's what I wanted hard to do, and maybe it does, and I'm just a dumbass. But I want a version where if you press a button off the beat, it doesn't do anything. Because right now, if you press a button off beat, it does the thing that you want it to do, but a weaker version. I want it just, if you press the button off the beat, nothing happens. Because it's too easy to fudge through as it is.
Yeah.
I don't think they're going to do that because, again, this is like...
Well, they can't anymore.
Fuck, shit.
They no longer exist. And it is one of those things that they're like, well, you know, if it had just won more awards or whatever, and then the guy, like, the head of the studio tweeted just a whole shelf of awards that Hi-Fi Rush had won. He's like, what more do you want?
We want you to not require salaries. Like, could you continue doing this if we didn't pay you?
Hey, that's how Downtown Theater worked in New York for a very long time. So.
I mean, this is something we talked about on the document. We're like, aha, my job is funny because our job might go away at any time. And I'm just like, buddy, that's how all jobs are now. The pandemic, I mean, we're going to talk about this when we talk about the sickos get laid off. But like, especially after the pandemic and remote work, a lot of companies realize, like, wait a minute. Hiring an American person is the dumbest move we can ever make. Let's never do it again. Like, why would we ever do that when we can hire someone in India who we can exploit 3 times as much? And it's like...
it's really grim.
Yeah, that's not good for me.
I don't think it's really good for anyone involved, except for the people, you know, in charge. But
dude, it's not. Sometimes at work, I'm talking with people in India, and I'm just like, how are we gonna not address the fact that, like, we all know that the only reason we're talking is because our mutual bosses think that you are like a half person who doesn't deserve money, like, because they know, they're smart, they know.
One of the biggest, like, catalysts for my eventual radicalization was working on a cruise ship for 6 months, and seeing that I was getting paid an absurd amount of money to be on that ship, whereas most of the cleaning staff and the people who actually made that boat run were from the Philippines, and they were being paid $1 an hour, working 18-hour days. Yeah. Because we were in international waters, they could pay whatever they want. They didn't have to follow any sort of rules, right? And what I found out that the 8th largest economy in the world is the money that is sent home from the cruise ship industry to the Philippines. It was just like, you can see why they can't just not do the job, because that's like the huge source of employment for a lot of that country. And I was just like, this is insane. These people are working harder than I will ever work in my entire life, and they are getting nothing for it.
So, like, legitimately, they work an 18-hour day, and if if Mr. Boss handed them a $20 bill, they would have to hand him $2 back.
Pretty much.
Okay, I already thought cruises were like an immoral thing, but like
now here's the kicker. Are you ready? You are in a windowless cabin with another person with a bathroom so small that the shower head is on top of the toilet.
well, that sounds kind of fun, but that part. Not everything else sounds bad. But
That makes me think it's going to spray my own piss at me.
Oh, now I don't like it anymore.
Here's the thing. There's probably a setting. I didn't find it in my 6 months, but there's probably a piss shower button. It's got to be.
I mean, it's only toggleable by the C-suite because it's just like, you know what I haven't had enough of lately? The pain
My
of
own
those
piss.
below me. No, they're on. I'm thinking they would just like, oh, those fucking peons. Well, now they're literally peed on. My puns.
I love. It's like, where are you gonna store your Maxims? You know,
the theater's gone. They don't have it anymore.
the theater's dead.
Sicko mode, sicko mode, sicko mode. Sicko mode, sicko mode, sicko mode. Sicko mode, sicko mode, sicko mode. Sicko mode, sicko mode, sicko mode.
AJ, one thing we haven't talked a lot about is your podcast, The Worst of All Possible Worlds.
Yeah.
And in particular, one thing you might not know about that if you just heard us discussing it or heard Josh discuss it with us on Josh Borman Goes Guesto Mode. Josh, of course, being a co-host of the Worst of All Possible Worlds podcast. One thing you might not know, you might think that this is some sort of chat show where they talk about various pieces of media in the world. Well, that's true. But one other thing that occurs is they do little interstitial fucking audio drama bits all the time. And who writes them? Probably some fucking freak.
Yeah, an anime sicko, one might say.
Yeah.
It is in fact mostly me. There have been a couple here and there where Josh and Brian have taken a stab at doing it, and they're really lovely and wonderful. It is mostly my job to do those interstitials though. Mostly because that's what kind of keeps me sane. Is by being able to do those, because we cover a lot of very bad evangelical like stuff on our podcast, and the reason the interstitials sort of came up and that they became serialized at a certain point was just because I was losing my mind having to listen to this same evangelical radio drama every single month, and I needed to find a way to keep myself engaged with it, so I decided to do an entire storyline that parallels the events that are happening inside the evangelical Christian radio drama, but asking the question of what do we owe the characters that we throw away, and what kind of character does Odyssey, that evangelical Christian radio drama, Adventures in Odyssey, what specifically kind of character does that show tend to throw away? And it is usually kids. They throw their child actors through what we call the no-no door, never to be seen again. And, sort of the straw men characters who come in to argue like the liberal point of view and are chastised and rightly rebuked and then thrown to the wolves. And I was like, well, those people still have to have lives in this town and they have to exist in this town. So what do those look like, and why do they involve a giant minotaur hybrid creature that lives underneath the ice cream shop?
Okay, so let's just talk on that. You have serialized these interstitials, these particular ones, you can see it on YouTube, folks. You're going to put the link in the description of this episode, in something called the Odyssey commercials. Now, if you were to explain these and this piece as this collected piece as a whole to, let's say, a listener who didn't know what they fucking were, what would you say?
So my friend Trevor Strunk said that he described it as, what if the back rooms was good?
Okay.
And that was the highest compliment I've ever gotten, because I think the back rooms is already is already, at least in concept, very, very good. So I took that as a compliment. But basically, it takes this show and turns it into more of a horror thing, and then eventually gets to the point where we follow a very particular person, this guy named Lorne Ligorium, who is the owner of Odyssey's Pipe Organ Emporium. And he and his journey to sort of take this creature, this like hybrid of like hate and greed and it's just like an incarnation of pure evil, and like transform it into something good, or like to finally like take the seething anger that's boiling under this very evangelical Christian town and then figure out a way to make it good, or to like have it recover from its trauma and find its place in the world, while also taking down like the symbol of Christian hate in the town, which is a guy named John Avery Whitaker, who is the main character of the Adventures in Odyssey series itself.
So let's zoom out a little more and get even a little more like literal here. Like, okay,
Yes.
so this is a collection of interstitial audio drama snippets that play in a series that you guys do where you are listening to a Christian radio drama called Odyssey?
Adventures in Odyssey, yes.
And again, give us a one sentence review what the plot of this bullshit is.
Great. It is Evangelical Simpsons.
Okay.
It has been running since 1987. It is a
Oh,
radio
no!
drama. Yes, it is still running to this day. In
God.
August, we are flying to Colorado Springs, Colorado, which is the base of Focus on the Family, which is the company that produces Adventures in Odyssey. And for their 1,000th episode, because they have now officially hit 1,000 episodes of Adventures in Odyssey. It has been running so long that the main character, John Avery Whitaker, has died twice and had been replaced by an actor twice at this point, and does not really show any signs of stopping. It is an incredibly dull show, is what I will say. Like, our coverage of it, very entertaining, very fun. You should give it a listen. But the actual act of listening to a whole episode, the stakes could not be lower. It's like, what if this girl gets her driver's license?
Yeah. Okay. And so then, knowing that the Odyssey commercials, these are interstitials that involve the thrown away characters in a sort of liminal space after being gone through the no door, and they encounter a monster of some type. And I gotta tell you, I didn't listen to all these because I've had a lot of I've been busy. I'm not gonna get into
You
it.
had a really rough week.
I mean, like, my week was fine. It just didn't have any free time. Joe had a really fucking rough week. Anyway, so I've only listened to like the first, fifth of this saga. But like, I gotta tell you, the writing, audio design, and performances, you can tell right away. This is what I would call very good as hell, even.
Thank you. Oh, that's so kind. Thank you.
Yeah.
Yeah, especially those early ones. Brian was editing back then, and he's our main editor for the podcast. And he knows how to do some really cool, fucked up shit with audio that I'm still honestly trying to figure out. But it started out very nebulous. Like my goal initially was not to serialize it at all, because that's sort of my inclination, is to always try and find and craft the larger story around it. So I just really wanted to make it very episodic, one-offs every single time. But things persist, and that's just how my brain works. So I eventually did turn it into a serialized series. But it deals with a lot of stuff. It deals with a lot of cosmic horror. It deals with a lot of grief and death and what that means, and how one copes with that, and the normal stuff that horror, I find, sort of dabbles in. Series dabbles in.
Horror is I can't, like, that to me is like an impossible nut to crack as a writer. I've never really tried to write horror, and the idea of it is so intimidating because
Really? Wow.
it's so tone and mood, Tone and mood are the thing. Plot, dialogue, like that kind of stuff, it's important, but you can have good plot and good dialogue, and if you don't have the tone and mood, it's fucking hollow. It doesn't work. And like when I'm feeling the tone and mood, it's like, how did you fucking do this? It's incredible.
Tom, I'm going to push back on that a little bit. You did an entire episode that was a noir-based thing, and that is nothing but tone and mood, my friend.
Yeah,
you are one step away from doing horror. You just got to put some spooky things in there.
Difference being the noir tone and mood is fucking stock. You can buy that from the store. All you need to do is like remember to say dame instead of woman, and like done.
I don't
horror,
know, man.
you have
I don't
to
know.
like.
You got some good metaphors in there. You got some good similes in there. Do you know how fucking hard that is for me? I can't do metaphor and simile to save my goddamn life.
Well,
Get out of here.
we all have our strengths and weaknesses. I do gotta say that like the I know we've said lore sucks and serialization. What is that? But the manufacture of lore. However, it's just so fun, especially with a chat podcast, to just like on the side be creating timelines of the skits. Yeah. Oh my god! I understand completely why you did that.
The impulse, I think, sits at the heart of all of us, but it is. The way I could rationalize getting away with it is that because we're covering a serialized radio drama, that it would make sense that the interstitial would its content dictates form, which is something that Stephen Sondheim would say all the time. So whatever you're covering should match the subject matter at the core of it. So if you're doing a show about vaudeville actors, then the musical around it should be a vaudeville of some kind. Because that will bring out the richest stuff sort of at the core of it. And so the interstitials for the Odyssey episodes specifically can be serialized because the thing we're covering is a serialized show. I wouldn't really do serialized bits for any of our other stuff unless they're just entirely just sketch comedy gags, you know.
Okay, well that's why we do ours, so we're in the clear.
I honestly, I'm not very good at writing sketches. I can never come up with the third beat, and I think I want to heap praise upon both of you for your sketches because they always have that third beat, and it is always so delicious. That Austin Powers
escalate. There's you got to make another layer of hell.
I mean, the thing for me that really was like, oh, okay, this makes it a lot easier. Because I was like, when we were doing the second batch, I was like, shorter. It's got to be shorter. Because if I listen to the first one again, I just cringe because these are all way too long. It's just like, oh my God, why have I not wrapped this up yet? And it's because I was out of practice with writing at the time. So I'm like, shorter. And then I realized like, oh, with the sketch, you could like, people always say like, it's so hard to end a sketch. And it's just like, well, actually it's not, because you can just have everyone stop talking. And like, then that's the end. And so it's really easy to just like introduce an escalation and then not deal with it. And then like, well, bye. Like, we don't have to talk about that.
Do the equivalent of a blackout, you know?
Oh, sure. Yeah. Or what's the edit when someone runs through the scene in improv? I guess that's what it's called. It's called an edit. Well, that was good. I'm so glad. What a profound waste of everyone's time. But yeah.
So on the subject of the theater background and the fact that you've done these interstitials and obviously have worked in other mediums other than theater, that is a long build up to ask this question, which is just like, what do you appreciate from your theater background and foundation the most when it comes to making stuff in other mediums? Just like, what are you glad you have with you from your theater origin, if that makes sense?
Oh yeah, what kind of tool belt? The tools I got there. I mean, really, it's just dialogue. I think there's something about audio dramas that lend themselves really well to playwrights because we're used to working in a dialogue forward medium, and in an audio drama that's kind of all you have. Besides, the soundscape, which is its own very important aspect of it. But I think that being raised and trained on dialogue forward media really is a wonderful skill I think that theater gave me. And also I think just emotional empathy too. I don't necessarily know if I am a great writer. I think I am a very emotional one. I think that the skill that I have is that I am able to make people feel things with my work. Even if the writing necessarily isn't always there, the emotion always will be, because that's just how my brain works. And I think that comes a lot from theater because it is such an empathetic art form, because you are sitting in an audience watching another human being in front of you, and there's nothing between you. There's no screen, there's no headphones. I mean, sometimes there's headphones, but like there's the least amount of barriers between you and another person.
Yeah.
And so you are forced to empathize with them. And there was a long tradition sort of in the theater of like, well, if you empathize with somebody on stage, then that will then translate into you going out into your real life and then applying those things that you felt in the theater to your real life. And I'm not saying that doesn't happen, but increasingly, I think as you get older, that connection starts becoming, you begin, like, you've put up your own screen between you and the actors on stage. So I feel like the importance of theater as like a social change thing may have been diminished over time just because we're not getting the people most open to it into the seats because they can't afford them. But I think because I've had that relationship with the audience, being from both an audience member and on the actor side of, because as an actor, you also empathize with the audience too, because they are also in the room with you and you create this communal thing together. I feel like because I have internalized that, that has also come through in my writing, and that is a strength I don't think I would necessarily have if I was just writing for the screen in the same way.
Hell yeah. That's so cool.
I was thinking something similar with screenwriting versus playwriting, and the aspect of playwriting, I don't know if I want to call it more difficult, but like the consideration is like, if you're writing a screenplay, you can literally like hold the audience's head and make them look at the shit you want them to look at, whereas you don't have that level of power. As obviously they're going to say the stuff that's on the page, but you are surrendering an element of control.
I mean, some playwrights won't. I mean, there are playwrights who are like, if you change a single word of mine, I'll, you're fired and I'll take you out back and, old yeller you. But like, it's, I don't think that leads to good plays most of the time, because it leads you to believe that you are the infallible voice behind the play, and that's just not the kind of art I want to make. That's not the kind of art that interests me. Art is collaboration, and you have to just surround yourself with the people that will make you better.
How does the process of writing for an audio drama differ to you from the process of playwriting? Because at least from my experience, and I wish I had more to speak on this, by which I mean I wish I was a more consistent writer and did more stuff. Have you
considered doing an interstitial every single week? Because let me tell you, it'll make you right.
I bet it will, but I'm not gonna do it. But okay. So my background, such as it was writing like fiction, like short fiction, and
Sure.
I never did any good short fiction, but that was what I did in college. And it's so like writing the audio dramas for Sickos has been so. It was such like a weird process because again, like you said, all you have is dialogue. And it helps a lot that we are a comedy show, so I could sort of hang a lampshade on a lot of that. Like you'll recall, listener, in the Modesty City Pilgrims audio drama, we had the sort of viewpoint character being like, I can't wait to say everyone's name out loud very clearly 2 times. And then he would go, and if you listen, he says everyone's name out loud very clearly, talking to them. And they're like, yes, I am them. So that but like, and it's so I'm very proud of my writing in these bits, but I also feel like, and I know this is wrong. I know this is like the Hitler in my head, the little Satan who tries to make you follow the rules. It's like that. Like that's not real writing. That's not real prose. That's just dialogue. That's just one part. And I know that's wrong, but at the same time, it's just like shit. I miss writing not dialogue, though.
Yeah.
But like, so is there a difference? Like, because if it's just dialogue from the stage and on the podcast, like, do you approach that differently or what?
Well, yeah, here's my secret. I'm terrible at writing prose. My prose is quite bad. I really only know how to write dialogue. And there are moments where, like, in stage directions, I get a little poetical and that, and all that stuff. But I could never imagine, like, writing a novel that isn't a first-person novel, because first-person novels are basically just monologues.
Yeah.
Like, it's just you explaining to the reader, like, what's happening. So that's the only way I can really rationalize that in my brain. But I think the main difference between playwriting and audio drama is that I then, as the audio editor as well, have to do all the other jobs that in playwriting you just basically map out the blueprints and then hand it to other people to make. And in an audio drama, I write everything on the page and then I record it, and then as I'm listening to it, I fill in the stuff around it. What does the room sound like? If this section is dragging a little bit, but I do need to get information out, what if I just add, like, their pacing across the room as they're explaining it?
Yeah.
That adds a little bit more drive to it. Or they're sitting down at this moment, they're leaning in for certain parts of it to really, like, drive home the point. So it becomes less blueprinty. It becomes less that you are the architect on high, and more like you are the construction guy actually building the skyscraper.
Hell yeah. So you're okay. That's interesting, because when we do our fucking audio dramas, at least not the sketches, but like the big ones, we like hire our buddies who know this kind of shit. Because
listen, if we had the money, I would love to do that. But then part of me is really scared, because I do a lot of editing and refining in that space when I'm creating the soundscape around it. So I do worry that if I didn't have that the writing and the whole overall thing would be worse, because I wouldn't have had a couple extra passes at it as we went.
That's interesting. The audio editing as revision. Okay.
Yeah.
Because this is one sort of thing that I don't know if it's exactly in line with what we're talking about, but a huge lesson that I learned about audio drama writing after the first one, because if you listen to the Modesty City Pilgrims audio drama, you will know there were many, many scenes where a mob has formed and a charismatic leader is talking to the mob, and then the mob reacts to what the charismatic leader says. Never do this in an audio drama, because the ability to get crowd sounds that get exactly that emotion, that sound like it's the same crowd in the same space, is very, very difficult.
Yeah, it's really tricky. I didn't realize I had done that until this whole Odyssey commercial thing. The first big arc of it we just wrapped it up 2 months ago, and I didn't realize over the course of writing it just how many big, like, group scenes I added, and unfortunately how many of those group scenes were all characters voiced by me. So there's a lot of scenes of me just talking and yelling at myself. And the reason that was done was just because I would, we record the episodes on Sundays, and then I make the interstitials over the Monday and Tuesday, and then they're released on Wednesday. So I would write them, and then it's not like I could just send these off to my actor friends, and because the turnaround is just too fast. So I would kind of default to me playing all the characters, but as you said, like as we were talking about in the Ace Attorney games, when all those characters come back for the finale, all of a sudden, all those characters are also me.
Yeah.
I made the insane decision to have a love story between two of those characters. Both of them have Southern accents. One is just higher pitched than the other. So there are moments where I was listening to it going, oh God, I really got to pitch him up higher, because I don't know who this is who's talking right now.
That's and also, voices that are different enough when they're on different bits, so it might not be different enough when they're talking to each other.
Yeah.
Oh, that's a nightmare. We used to do our RPG show where I was the GM, and occasionally it would strike me like this would be a great moment for some character development between character A and B, and I'd be like, wait, I'm both of them. That can't no, that's not happening.
Yeah, it's tricky. And I did do this thing that I did it very unintentionally, but over the course of the finale of ours, I just started killing off characters little by little. And it wasn't like conscious, but now that I look back on it, I think my brain was like, hey, maybe we need less people in these scenes going forward.
Yeah.
You're gonna be really tired, and I think we should probably get it down to as few people as possible.
Yeah. I can see why that would be an impulse that it's good to follow.
Yeah. What was? I mean, let me ask you both the question. What do you think that was the most difficult part about making Sicko Shock 2? What was
Production.
like? Oh, great! Eric, done.
Logistics. That's a lot.
Yeah.
I was writing an audio drama. Now, I probably wouldn't have a ton of one-off characters that require wrangling of voice actors. Obviously, we're glad we did it, but we really underestimated like what kind of logistical upkeep, or rather spin up, there is when you have that many people in crowd scenes.
Yeah. I mean, we didn't have any crowd scenes in Sicko Shock 2. We just did have a lot of people. And there were crowd scenes in the sense that every episode had a lot of people who we had to like get in touch with. And it's not like there were ever any problems per se. Nothing went catastrophically wrong, but just to, like there were like 50 people involved in the production of that. And like every one of those 50 people had to like get scheduled, and like get told like, please send us the like all that fucking logistical spin up. It was just a killer. Like I think I've said this in one of my fucking self-indulgent little like Sicko Shock in retrospective, which is just like when I wrote it, it was so much fun. It was like the most fun I ever had. It was great. It came out like water. Oh, I couldn't get enough. And then after that, there was a year and a half where I had a second job that I paid to do. And it's like, by the end of it, I'm just like, I don't fucking know if this is good. All I see is like the check boxes on the like list of tasks to do. When I see the fucking words, all I see now is the like fucking narrative steps that they are, the building blocks. And I sort of scoff because like, especially, I went in knowing this, and I went in doing this on purpose. All of the stories are so fucking simple. Like nothing ever has a twist. It is always like scene 1, scene 2, something changes. Scene 3, they do something. Scene 4, did it go well? Scene 5, it went bad. Like that's the only fucking story in the entire thing. And so like after a year and a half of that, I'm like, this sucks. Like, why did I like this? Like, this is just, who cares? And then of course, like when we did the premieres, people were like, this is good. I like it. I'm like, okay, thank God. But just like the year and a half where again, it stopped being a creative project and started being work.
Yeah.
Cause I mean, and it's not like that thing where it's like, oh, these artistic projects, eventually they become work, if you do it too much and you have too many deadlines. It wasn't even that. It was like, no, it literally was work. Like there wasn't an artistic component to the project anymore. It's just work.
Yeah.
That's what it was.
Have you gone back and listened to it since?
Like bits. It's because I wanted to hear. I know I've listened to Stack Overflow and Native Resolution, their final scene again, because Ray and Casey are fucking on fire in that, and I just wanted to hear it, but not fully. No.
I my confession now is that I've been listening to y'all in preparation for coming on this. You have been the background to my Elden Ring DLC playthroughs.
Oh shit!
So I have listened to an obscene number of Anime Sickos episodes over the last 2 weeks.
Dear Lord.
But one of them that I've listened to 3 times is your retrospective on Sicko Shock 2.
You're like 20% of the downloads for that episode.
I believe so. And I think it really touched something in me because it is such a beautiful encapsulation of what it means to have put your heart and soul into a thing before it premieres and being like, I don't know, man, maybe.
Yep.
But what I'm here to tell you is, having listened to it, you guys did something really great. And you should be so proud. And I just want to know if there's anything in there that like you feel really jumped out at you. Because I mean, that opening sequence for the cop episode is like fucking unreal, and it's one of my like, it's one of like the best things I've heard in audio drama. So I need to know like, what's the bit that you go back and listen to, the bits and pieces here or there. I mean, you talked about that one with Ray. What was his name? The
Native Resolution.
Drive. Yeah, Native Resolution
And Stack Overflow.
But and Stack Overflow. Great names, by the way. That's the other thing about audio drama is like, if you're gonna have a character say the name multiple times, at least make the name so fucking cool that you want people to hear them and you want people to say them. But like, Joe, what about you? What's one of your favorites?
Oh, the shoes don't fit after you shit. Like, I've had that joke some version of that joke in a notebook. It was an orphan for so long. I was like, this is nothing. Like, I mean, like, this is so funny, but like, what is the context for this? And then we got started, and it was just like that's happened, and I like zoomed in, and I was like, oh baby, it's time.
This is what Joe and I. This is our alchemy we have as a writing duo, because Joe often doesn't have the gas in the tank to actually do like a lot of drafting on account of his chronic pain and
job. So one of those is gone, so that's good. But
what he can do that I can't really is like, I can be funny on the show, but when it comes to like writing a joke, I can't. Like, I just can't. It's really hard for me to do it.
It's tough, man. It's really fucking tough.
But you know who can write fucking jokes is Joe. And Joe will just give me a bunch and be like, here are the bullets. Please shoot them at some point. And then I just like, the part where it's like, put bullet here. I just like put the joke there. And then it fucking hits so hard because...
Here are my orphans. Please shoot them. No, sorry. That something wires got crossed.
Everyone loves the dead orphan. They go nuts. Speaking of the method, everyone talks about Heath Ledger's Joker diary. Like, wow, this is pretty twisted. And you see it, and it's like things that I think are funny, babies and blunders, and it's just like, I don't really think you needed to write this, Heath. You could have done it without doing this fucking book.
Well, and they trot him out as being like, oh, he was such a method actor, and there's so many behind the scenes photos of him just doing his Australian accent. And like just hanging out at the crafts table and just like shooting the shit with the DP. And it's like, no, he had a really sound mind about all this. He just really tired, man. He was trying to do too much.
Yeah. God.
Anyway.
Oh, another thing that I come back to. This is just because the line read is so good. Is when at the final episode when Geordi is in like cyberspace and he's telling the crew like, I'm 2 steps ahead of you and you can't win, and he's just like, and kill yourselves, I guess. Bye. And just like him just like just thinking like, what other stuff can I say? I guess kill yourself. I mean, that's also like it. One of the things that makes an audio drama really easy to write is when you have the killer cast and you know exactly who's going to be who, and you write it knowing exactly how they're going to say it, and you give it to them with no direction. They say it exactly that way, and you're just like, love it.
Yeah, and sometimes the dissonance of like you wrote it one way and they say it a different way, and you're like, that's the way it was always meant to be said.
Oh yes, yes. See, okay, talking about the year and a half of work makes it sound really bad, and it was really bad, but some of that work was super fun. Like, for example, the recording, when it's just like, I think we got some killer lines for you to say. Please say them. And it's like, I'm gonna say them better than you think, and it's just like, oh fuck, you did.
Working with other people will always make your stuff shine. Doing this alone will drive you insane. Yeah, it will make you lose faith in everything. But together, you can make something pretty cool.
It's so interesting that you say that, and that's true. And yet, artistic communities across the world are in decline, and no one can make any money. I think we talked about this earlier.
No. Like, capitalism is actively trying to destroy it, but it can't, and it really pisses off capitalism, I think. Yep. Because it's like the theater it's like majoring in calligraphy, right? It feels like it was this huge cultural thing that then once screens came along, once movies came along, once TV came along, it like sharply declined in sort of like the cultural zeitgeist, right? To the point where now they've extended like the youth ticket deals. Used to be if you're 25 and under, you get in cheap, and now it's if you're 45 and under,
Oh my!
you get discount tickets. And it's just because it has lost a lot of its relevance, but it's not gone, and it can't ever be gone completely, because we've been doing this, we've been telling stories to each other in person as long as we've been a species. So as much as these systems try and grind us down, I don't know, we're still here, man.
I mean, unless robots really become a lot better and a lot more prominent, like theater is, I think, the AI proof art form. Generative AI, that is.
Yeah, until they build a robot that like gains sentience or whatever, and then we'll just go to robot theater, acting alongside human actors will be great.
But like,
bad if it rains.
Yeah, give one if it rains, one if it rains. But like, yeah, any visual art, music, anything that comes out of a screen or a speaker that can get generative AI, it'll never be good, but you can see why a fucking freak would force it to, be that way. But theater is literally like some guys fucking standing around saying words, and you can't.
Yeah, if only there were money in it. God, if only there was good money in it.
I think with that, it's time to wrap up Anime Sickos for this week. AJ Ditty, thank you for being our guest. That was so fun.
Thank you for having me, you guys. I'm a huge fan of the show, so it's always fun coming on the other side of shows I love.
That's awesome. We were really excited about this, as Tom had said. The week was unfortunate for both of us. You are owed a consumption of all your work. But
we will be in touch
that's great.
with our feedback.
I would, and if I don't know if people can go Guesto mode more than once, or if it's like once the load's on maximum, it's done. But
the limiting factor is not the rules; it's just the facts of our production and how slow we make episodes, and how it's like, and how we like to have a couple of non-guest episodes between guests and have a variety and such. And
and you got to get new guests on or whatever. But if you ever cover anything that you need a third voice for, let me know.
And if you ever need some voice actors for your interstitials who aren't you, we like doing that kind of shit.
I was gonna do that. I was gonna do that pitch off mic. Okay, great.
If people want to know more about you, if they want to hear your stuff, read your plays, listen to your podcast, listen to your audio interstitial podcast drama bits, how do they do that? Where do they go?
Well, just go to the search for The Worst of All Possible Worlds in any of your podcast things of choice. The Odyssey interstitials, as we said, I think is going to be linked down below. You can listen to those out of context, and hopefully they make sense. And then, I'm on Twitter, as long as there's Twitter, at The Fuzzy Mask. And I'm on Instagram at The Fuzzy Masked Man, where I also did a really cool art thing that if you are at all interested in Animal Crossing, you should check out. I adapted the Island of Dr. Moreau into Animal Crossing and made it into a series of Instagram stories that people get very mad at me after they watch, because they're like, how dare you make me experience art through Animal Crossing. So
I tried to watch those, but Instagram doesn't like it when you use the desktop version.
It really doesn't. I have made a great piece of art on the worst fucking interface you can imagine. But yeah, I think that's kind of it for me. Oh, and and subscribe to our Patreon if you got patron bucks lying around. Yeah. We got some cool shows on there that we don't release to the main feed. So,
one thing that I've really noticed about people, pretty much everyone, and this is more and more true the further into time we get, is that everyone's got like too much money. Like no one's struggling, and they're just like if they're struggling to finding a place to give their money, because it's just sitting around, growing in value. Which
I have all this money earmarked for podcasts, but no place to put it. A common situation we find ourselves in.
Yes.
Yeah. I make money angels.
Anyway, that's all for Anime Sickos this week. Thank you all for listening. I've been Tom, an Anime Sicko.
I've been Joe, an anime sicko.
I'm AJ, an anime sicko as well.
Yeah, you were fucking talking about Danganronpa, saying I don't think I'm an anime sicko.
Yeah.
Jesus Christ. I mean, I always am waiting for the person who says they're not an anime sicko, and they like give me an argument that like stands up. But it's always like, I don't think I'm an anime sicko. I only have 10 Dragon Ball figures, and it's like, fuck you.
I only have 3 Yu-Gi-Oh body pillows. It's fine.
Each side would be, like, one side would be Yugi pre-transform. And the other side would be when he transforms.
Yeah, and then one of them's Joey. No, yeah, the reason you're not an anime sicko is you don't have a Kaiba one yet. But you gotta get
White Dragon.
Yeah, the only Kaiba one in stock is when he's in his school uniform. When you're holding out for the one where he's in his Battle City outfit with all the belts. Anyway,
Flying off him.
that's all. The show's over. No more show. Bye bye. End.
See ya.
Thank you for listening to Anime Sickos. I've been Tom, a sicko. You can follow me on Twitter at TomHarrison19. Joe is also a sicko. You can follow him on Twitter at Sharia Uncle. You can follow Anime Sickos on Twitter at Anime Sickos, or email us at animesickos@gmail.com. Please leave us a review or something. I don't know. Tell a friend. Anyway, until next time, bye.